What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. So for those of you who don't play Overwatch, there's a new feature that Blizzard is launching on the Overwatch public test realm that's been generating some buzz around the game, mostly just because of how cool it is, really just because of how silly and almost kind of cute this new feature is. So in Overwatch, there's a new feature coming which is essentially just a toxic chat filter that replaces certain phrases if you type them in chat with a replacement chat line. More specifically, if you type GG easy in chat in Overwatch, it's going to get automatically replaced with like a lighthearted, friendly, almost kind of troll message instead. You know, things like, well played, I salute you all, or for glory and honor, huzzah comrades, or my personal favorite, I'm wrestling with some insecurity issues in my life, but thank you all for playing with me. This is just some of the few examples, there's a few more, but it might actually be the case that League decides to try out a similar feature from what we've seen, so we definitely wanted to talk about it and show you guys what we found. So in League of Legends, as with, pretty much all competitive games, it's really just, plagued by toxicity, and there's a lot of players that just ruin the fun for everyone else, and that's kind of the case in every online game that has, a reasonably sized player base. And there's a lot of features in the game already that aims at giving players ways to deal with it. There's muting, reporting, chat restrictions, bans for toxicity, and all sorts of stuff. And the new champion select definitely helped avoid some of those awkward situations as well, where like a player trolls because they don't really get the role they want or something like that. Still though, you kinda always gotta hear a toxic player shout something nasty at least once or twice before you can actually mute them and move on with the game. And Riot does, they have an entire team dedicated to managing player behavior to try and cut down on toxicity, and they've come up with some interesting ideas for sure. So Riot Eupharion, one of the members of the player behavior team, has been dropping some comments on the forums quite recently, and it's actually looking pretty possible that we'll get some improvements to combat toxicity very soon. And it might just be that Riot takes inspiration from Blizzard and they try out the new chat replacement feature. So Eupharion mentioned that there had been some discussions about a chat replacement feature for the past couple of years now, and some pretty creative things were dreamt up as like funny messages to replace the toxic ones with. One of the ways Riot thought might be funny to address this kind of thing was to replace the messages with just something like completely random, not something that actually had any meaning to it. Like a couple examples we got from the Rioters were like, you type something toxic in chat and your message gets replaced with like, good job, you get a cupcake. And messages like, turnips sleep loudly when the moon is cheerful. That's something that doesn't really make sense at all. And Eupharion mentioned that the problem they saw with this chat replacement method was that it essentially just kind of created like this arms race, and this is something that's probably going to happen in Overwatch as well once the feature gets implemented, where players just essentially quickly find out what triggers the filter and then just find creative ways to avoid it. Instead of typing GGEZ, the letters, they would type like GG, you're bad or something, like they would just find some way around the filter in a sense, using some special characters or just changing the words or whatever, and then Riot obviously has to update the filter, but they also have to kind of like cycle the repeats themselves, and it essentially develops this arm race of the Rioters trying to make the filter work in all scenarios and players trying to get around it. And players are pretty much always going to be ahead of the filter because it only takes a few changed letters to get the same toxic message across and actually dodge the filter in the first place. So one consideration is that the filter could be kind of algorithmic in nature and, be capable of searching for alternate ways to say things like replacing E's with threes or, examples like that, right? But the thing is that this doesn't entirely work when players just come up with brand new ways to be toxic though, or like just new messages to say. So the other possibility is so that, maybe players could report toxic statements and the filter would just update itself to include those new statements. Although that would definitely take a ton of resources to make work, it takes some time, and someone would need to keep checking to make sure normal things also weren't being censored by trolls as a result of that. So it's no small task for sure, unless they keep it really simple like the current Overwatch filter. And so Riot decided not really to just jump on the chance to implement the filter right away, but Eupharion did say that it was very interesting that other games, Overwatch, were experimenting with this feature as well, and that it would definitely speed up development for this kind of feature on League as well. And to me, that just sounds like Riot are essentially saying that, yeah, it's a cool idea, it's probably going to help, and although, there's problems with the system, there's issues for sure, if it does work well for Overwatch, Riot is pretty much almost for sure going to try it as well, although probably with a bit more of a complex system rather than just like replacing one message with a bunch of pre-made responses. That's not to say that chat replacement is the only thing Riot are testing as anti-toxicity tools. Yefarion actually also mentioned a couple other things that were possible alternatives. One was the honor system, which kind of counters toxicity in like a different way in a sense. Instead of taking negative behavior and making it pointless, it just rewards good behavior on the other end of the spectrum. And just, revamping the honor system and improving it and adding all sorts of stuff to it. And positive behavior systems like that can be a little bit awkward though, when people know exactly what to say to maybe trigger the reward, or they're only really being nice so that they get a reward at the end of it, not because it's the right thing to do. And it's a little bit difficult to figure out like how to make the honor system actually work properly and have it still be meaningful and not abusable or exploitable or anything like that. The problem right now really is just that the honor system isn't much of a reward at all, right? To the point where, even players with honor ribbons themselves don't actually care about it enough to avoid being toxic in future games. Yefarion also confirmed that the Tribunal was being redesigned in the future, and it's pretty much being designed from the ground up completely, because the old version of the Tribunal was actually just kind of a mess. But that's definitely good to know because, the direct player input was a really good way to get the positive players involved in just trying to improve the community through the Tribunal and managing the cases and just doing all the stuff involved with it. Now, as far as the Overwatch feature goes overall, it obviously does have a lot of problems or just a lot of ways to circumvent it or just things that make it so that it's not going to be that powerful. But I actually really like the way that Cynical Nerds put it. So for those of you guys who don't know, Cynical Nerds, they do a lot of commentary and guides around Overwatch, and they made a video about this Overwatch change in particular, and they brought up a point that I personally thought was really interesting. And it's essentially the idea that having this filter, this toxic chat filter, or this replacement messages kind of thing, becomes not only a way to stop toxicity directly in game by preventing people from typing those specific phrases, but that it also becomes this like huge powerful tool for non-toxic players to kind of just like joke around with and kind of like lighten the situation a lot more than they otherwise could. Like let's say your opponent types GG easy or just some variation of it that doesn't get censored, so like some version that gets around the system or whatever, and now you can respond to them with the censored phrase. So you type GG easy, the version that gets censored, as a way that it almost kind of pokes fun at the players for being toxic. Like it kind of like lightens the situation, it makes fun of them. You get like a very easy way to just kind of like calm everyone down and stuff, and it gives you this lighthearted sort of fun and silly way to respond to flamers and trolls in a game that otherwise wouldn't entirely exist without it, which is actually pretty cool. And it's something I didn't really think about until watching their video about it. So definitely check them out. We'll put a link in the description to their video so you could check it out. And that makes me think that this kind of filter would actually go down pretty well in League, since the toxic players kind of just behave in similar ways to Overwatch. So I mean, if the system works for Overwatch, it should probably work for League as well. So we'll have to see how it plays out with Blizzard, and if it works out with them, then it's something that could definitely come to League in the future. Anyway, that just about wraps up what we know so far about Riot's upcoming anti-toxicity measures and their thoughts and new solutions from Blizzard. So here's a challenge for you guys. Let's see who can come up with the funniest replacement message to use against toxic chat messages. Let us know what your replacement phrase would be down in the comments below, and looks like that's gonna be it for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you didn't enjoy the video, the dislike button's right next to it, so feel free to hit that one too. Subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.